Hello friends, Shayla here. So I am here to wrap up the rest of the reading month for May for you. I do have the first half of the month wrapped up in a separate video. I will leave that linked down below as I always do. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I'm Shay. And let's just dig into what I read in the second half of the month. I read a total of 7 more books, and I'm very pleased with 14 books total in the month of May. A bunch of them were chunkier books, or books that took me a little more time to get through than normal. So I am really excited about what I was able to accomplish reading-wise in the month of May. So let's just dig right in and talk about them. So to start things off, I have 2 ebooks that I read this month. The first one is Dark Magic by Christine Feehan. This was a reread for me, and upon reread, I gave this book 3 stars. So when I initially read this book, I was in a very different place in my life, and I think I was able to forgive a lot of the really bad and not okay things going on in the book because of where I was at in my life at the time. So upon reading this book, it is a smutty paranormal romance book. It's kind of vampire related. They call themselves Carpathians and not vampires, and it's this whole big world. She's got tons of books in it, and this is book 4 technically in the series, but it was the first one I ever read. And I decided to revisit it because it had been many years since I'd read it. It'd been a good 7 or 8, honestly. So I decided to revisit it because I'd been kind of reading some paranormal smutty romance again, and I found another series that I really loved, and so I wanted to see how it compared. In rereading this, like the beginning of the book, it basically depicts almost a rape scene, and I became very not okay and very uncomfortable very quickly. Though the rest of the book, it does address that what happened was wrong and that it shouldn't have happened and all those kind of things, it's still in a way just kind of brushed over. So that's why I lowered my star rating on this particular one, and I don't know that I'll be revisiting it again. This is honestly probably the 4th or 5th time I've read it, but this was the first time some of that kind of stuff kind of sunk in for me. So though I'm sad to be lowering my rating on it and realizing so many problematic things about it, I do think I'll revisit other books in the series to see if it's something depicted in the series as a whole or if it was just that particular novel. So that'll be an interesting experiment for me to go on. But on this reread, I lowered my star rating from 4 to 3. Next up, we have The Darkest Promise. This is the next book in the Lords of the Underworld series. As you guys know, this has kind of been like my paranormal smutty romance series of the year in a lot of ways. I have basically binge read these 14 books over a period of like 4 months. So this is a series that I'm very invested in. The particular coupling depicted in this one is one that they've kind of teased for several books, so we finally got their story, and I really, really liked how it went down. They're both very strong, independent creatures, and it was really interesting to see them come together. And I really like the overarching story that's happening in here. There's lots of big things that happen in this particular one. So I really, really, really enjoyed it. And again, most of these get 4 stars from me. They're paranormal smutty romance. They're not the best written thing out there, but I do find them wholly enjoyable. Next up is a book that was sent to me by Forever Romance Books. Again, thank you to Forever Romance for sending this on to me. And that is More Than Words by Mia Sheridan. I have a more in-depth review of this one in my previous video, so I will leave that linked for you guys. And you guys can check out my thoughts there. I gave this 4.5 stars. I love Mia Sheridan's work. Definitely check her out if you haven't. Next up is a book that I have been putting off I put it off for 9 months. I bought this when it came out, and I finally got around to reading it. And that is Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. So I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this book. I was not particularly happy when this book was depicted and released, but I'm wholly invested in the the Throne of Glass series, and wanted to see where it went. Well, I can tell you I'm really glad that I did read Tower of Dawn. I do like what she did with Kale's character in this particular book. I do like the tie-ins from Assassin's Blade and all of those other things in this novel. And I really feel like it kind of helped bridge a lot of the gap and a lot of the holes, the plot holes that we had in Empire of Storms. So if you weren't necessarily pleased with Empire of Storms and felt like it left us with a bunch of huge holes, I think this will help kind of fill in some of those blanks for you. So I do recommend continuing on with the series. I'm very excited for Kingdom of Ash coming out later this year, even more so now that I've read Tower of Dawn. I gave this one 4.5 stars. The next book on this list completes a series that I've read this year, and that is A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. I have now completed the Shades of Magic series. The series as a whole, each book got 4 stars from me. This is a solid fantasy series. For me, I must read enough fantasy that this didn't blow me away like it blew everybody else away. And I like V.E. Schwab's writing enough. I don't think her writing was bad. It didn't always jive with me. There were some things that just kind of took me out of the story. But as a whole, it's a solid fantasy series. If you've been sitting on it at all, give it a try. If you don't jive with her writing, then that's fine. Put it down. Don't keep going. I do think this third book, if I had to pick a favorite, it would probably be this third one. I feel like the story rounded itself out really well. I liked getting to know some of our side characters a little bit better in this particular one. And so I do think if I had to pick a favorite in the series, it would be this conclusion. And I thought it wrapped up nicely. It did leave it open enough because I know she's going to write more in this world. And I will most likely explore the other things in this world that she continues to write in future. Next up, we have another one that I've kind of been sitting on for a while and finally got around to reading, and that is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. This is a dark, twisted fantasy story in and of its own about a young woman whose grandmother wrote all these fairy tales, and what ends up happening is they're written about the hinterland, but the hinterland is real, so all the characters are real, and they kind of come and are coming after her for a particular reason. I can't tell you why because spoilers. I didn't love this one as much as I was hoping to. I think for me, as much as I like darker fairy tales, I think this one went in a place that just was kind of weird rather than just dark. I might revisit this again. I might have just been in a bad headspace when I read it, but as of right now, it's a 3.5 stars. I mean, it's not a horrible book. It just didn't quite jive with me at the time, and I just don't think it was what I was quite looking for at the time. So I plan on keeping it on my shelf. I will probably reread this, you know, maybe closer to Halloween when I feel like something dark and twisted, and go from there with it. If you've been interested at all, just go in knowing it's probably not what you expect it to be, unless you expect dark and twisted and weird, and try to enjoy it from there. And again, I gave this one 3.5 stars. And last but not least on this list is another book/series that I've been putting off for a while. I have the whole series on my shelf, so I figured I might as well get started, and that is The Winner's Curse by Marie Rukowski. So this was huge on BookTube when I started a couple years back, and I found all of the pretty covers on Book Outlet for like a couple bucks each. So I got the whole series, and I read this book in a day. It is wholly, the writing is very addictive. It kept me engaged. I didn't necessarily want to put it down, and I really ended up enjoying my reading experience with this. Now, the story, on the other hand, I don't think it was anything wholly original by any means. And, you know, it's probably a 3.5 star book. I'm interested enough to continue on to the next book, which I do have, and I have started reading, but I don't think this is going to be my new favorite fantasy series ever. I like it. It's enjoyable. It's fun to read, and I really enjoyed how political these got. Sometimes I like a really good political fantasy, and if you like political fantasy, this is a great fit for you, because this first book is all about setting up the politics of this world. So I'm really excited to see where book 2 takes us, and that's pretty much it. Again, 3.5, maybe 4 stars on this one, and we will see how I feel after book 2. So friends, that is what I read in the second half of the month of May. I'm kind of glad to see the month of May go. I had some medical stuff going on. I had an allergic reaction and all sorts of weird, funky stuff going on. So I'm kind of glad to put all that behind us and continue on to a new month. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite read of the month of May was. If you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts in the comments below as well. Again, my name is Shayla. If you're new here, please like this video and subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you around, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.